È incredibile come siamo arrivati alla 22esima live e tipo sono secoli che non porto questa serie sul canale, però essenzialmente questi giorni ero un po' andaffarato sia per l'università sia per altri cazzi e mazzi di cui non mi va di parlarne. A parte non è che sia successo un granché, però anche per via di fatto che magari alcune volte ho preferito portare, che lo so, su Twitch Demon Slayer, però oggi mi andava di portare Ace Attorney Chronicles. Oh vai, buhaioli, siamo tornati con furore su The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Qua c'è un card sistiante, quindi mi levo la felpa, anche se 90 su 100 tra un po' me la dovrò rimettere. Che dire, mi manca un sacco già da questo giochino, anche perché ho provato quello... Ciao Ali, benvenuta. Ho provato lo spin-off, lo spin-off crossover tra Layton e Phoenix Wright, che mi è ripresa voglia di giocare a The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, e date la possibilità c'è, si va avanti. Ora siamo arrivati al secondo interrogatorio di Membami. Allora, rivediamo un attimo. È una sega. Allora, Jesail Brett, madonna mia. Time of Death, causa di morte, il single deep step, one behind. Non trovo il video del silenzio interrotto. Ah, ok. Allora, purtroppo ti devo eliminare il commento perché purtroppo siamo su YouTube, però te lo mando su Discord. Allora. Dove sta? Non è nemmeno troppo lontano. Eccolo qui. Capitali, te lo mando su Discord il video. Oh vai, dovrei avertelo inviato. Allora, Extreme Noises, Pupil Construction. Ok, quindi questa è la foto. Gli fa buono. Ah, questo è il Soseki Natsume. Poi qua c'è la penna che si è rivelata essere quella di... Esatto, quella del Fra. Poi c'è il Poison Article. L'articolo appunto trattava del coso. Ma c'è Giulio, ciao G-chan. Ciao Giulio. Eccolo lì con le scimmie. E mi sa che poi c'è anche il Carbo. Poi non lo so se c'è anche il Carbo. Ah, sto per dire c'è Maya, però non è Maya. Oi oi. Poi c'è questa roba qui che non mi ricordo minimamente cosa sia. Ah, quella per annullare. Sì, è quello per individuare. Ecco, sì, è quello per individuare il cosa. Questa è il curtello. E qua poi che ci sa. Ok, va bene. Mi sa che era sconsigliato fare l'interrogatorio, come si dice, dopo così tanto tempo. Non mi ricordo quasi niente. You asked for the interview, you say? Well, of course I did. Ah, già è vero, io avevo cambiato voce. I wanted to ask about the incident she was involved at the end of last year. About the case in which Dr. John H. Wilson lost his life? That's not the way I phrased it. Many memories... Ah, questo l'avevo già fatto a quanto pare. Boh, non so perché l'ho interrotto così brutalmente. Potevo finirlo, vabbè. Yes, that sort of thing is straight as a ruler. Ask every question if you're asking for a menu in a restaurant, I say. It's the best way. I bet the paper taught me that. And now Miss Brett answer with one simple phrase. Mystery is a woman's charm. Ah, oui, that told me. So I waltzed right out of there. Really? Something about that doesn't quite seem to fit together. Leave every room as if you're, waltzing in a dance hall. I say it's the best way. I bet the paper told me that. Then, watching secretly from outside, I saw the woman being stabbed, and the other witness come running.
Hold it!
That was very persistent of you, considering that... Allora, tra l'altro volevo vedere una cosa, perché io qui... Volevo vedere una cosa. Ah, visto? Allora... questo rende tutto meglio. Allora, text skip, non so se metterlo on o off. Wait time, restore defaults. Questo lo voglio mettere così. Però non so se mettere il text skip on o off. Sinceramente, no, però forse è meglio off. Allora, però volevo vedere un attimo una cosa. Salviamo il gioco un secondo perché voglio andare un attimo nel... già. Allora, andiamo perché ho visto che si poteva mettere l'audio in giapponese. Sinceramente lo preferisco. Allora, andiamo... C'era da qualche... Eccolo qua, language. Ok. Ok, adesso dovrebbe essere in teoria in giapponese. In teoria. Però non ne sono sicuro. Io lo voglio tenere in giapponese perché è giusto così. Persistence with the price. Any memosist will tell you that. Let them think you're after. Then just when they lower their guard, that's when you swoop it for the scoop.
And the fruits of your labor are all too apparent in this sterling photograph. Tom, sure, the young yokel student would rather not be reminded of his damning evidence.
Actually, it's thanks to that photograph that we managed to identify this witness. And now that you've found me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I'm nothing to hide. I'm sure.
Please go ahead, witness. This court is eager to hear what you have to say.
Try to stop me. There's a story to tell you, and I'm going to tell it. Allora, adesso tra poco dovrebbe esserci il momento della verità. The detective realized that the victim... Matta! Oh, bellino. Tra l'altro lei dovrebbe essere la doppiatrice di Chica di The Quintessential Quintuplets. Però vabbè. And Saki-san reminded behind the hat. That's right, yup. Our writer find here was a blethering whack, shaking all over from his head to his toes. Mustache twitching, eyes bulging. What do you expect? Sembrava una pecora. You know, the terrific troubles that haunted me whilst traveling up abroad. Back behind baleful bears. They'll be coming for me, surely. That's all I could think. I felt as though I were gasping for air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat. Poor Sasaki-san. His experience had scared him deeply. As the world seemed to close around me, I quietly recited a prayer to Amina Buddha. Eternal emptiness, empty eternity. The end is coming for me, surely. No sutras are to resound in my courtroom, please. And now, we come to the crucial part. That's when it happened. That's when this writer man asked me to the woman a very significant question. Mata! Bellino. What question? What exactly did he say? Well, now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Writer man? Ah!
Out with it, you kill hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying English woman?
Well, Idris had been catching crabs at the water's edge and building castles in sand, you see. Well, the seaside is a place to be at leisure, I suppose, even for a grown man. But then, all of a sudden, from the little bench at a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help and piercing the air. Ray. I ran up to the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed one victim. As soon as Inspector Hosonaga saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan from the dead English woman. I nearly jumped out of my skin. È una sega. Cioè, comunque capitano tutte a Sasei-san, porello. But what did you ask her, Sasaki-san? I asked her, who did this to you? Don't protect this any longer. How did the woman respond? She didn't. She said nothing in response. But... La sega. Che ansia. Sembra Marco Sogni quando fa i commenti di Clash Royale. È uguale, identico. Now, without invasion of or reticence, I demand you to amend your testimony. I will. I asked her, who did this to you? But she never replied. Batta. Che carina la voce di lei. Molto meglio di quella... Hold it. Dai, hold it. È orribile. Matta invece è molto più carina, molto più femminile. So you tried to find out who the culprit was? he who asked the question for a minute. He who does not remain a fool forever. And having labeled a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever.
You've indicated that the victim failed to respond. Is that correct?
I know why. I know why the English woman said nothing. She was ignoring me because of my stoop and mustache. Because I'm Japanese. Oh dear. Saki-san has really developed a dislike for the English, it seems. Having read the report on his time to Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at the xenophobia. But the English woman didn't ignore me at all. Did she, Mr. Writer man? Well, yes, alright. She did respond in manner of speaking, I suppose. She just lifted a trembling finger and pointed the direction of the defendant. Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant. Sasaki-san, is that really true? It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the English woman was sprawled on the foot before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her. Mentre qua invece... Ok, quindi torna. Far side of her. And we asked Who did this to you? The Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point the trembling finger back of the hut, which was, it can be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today. Magari non era la vittima, ma una persona che stava nascosta dietro la vittima. Vai, andiamo. Sasaki-san, why on earth did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony? But fiddle's sake, I say. This is not British court of law. You will respond in Japanese. Yes, of course. The Englishwoman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling. She was trembling, and then everything was a blur. And I think about it, I feel as though perhaps she was putting in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. To somewhere at the back of the hut, where nobody was standing at all. You mean that in your memory of the events and the direction in which the victim was pointing are but unclear? Quindi a quanto pare Soseki-san ha visto che la donna stava puntando verso la colpevole, ma non era sicuro se fosse la colpevole o un'altra persona. È una sega. Yes, that's it, unclear. Proprio nei Saturni. Ed è proprio per questo che mi garba. I'm very, very unclear.
Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt. Yes, the woman may barely have been conscious, and yes, perhaps her finger wavered slightly. But there can be no doubt that this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Because as the court can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction of the victim was pointing. It is abundantly unclear that no one besides the accused could possibly have committed this crime.
I am inclined to agree. And in the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe that we can conclude this trial.
No!
The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyer hopes dashed. 92 points across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition. This is a serious blow, Susato. Unless we are unable to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence. The judge will give this ruling and the trial will be over.
But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet.
Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need.
Ray gave us a account of how events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed.
Oh vai, meno male ha fatto dei flashback per chi mi fa sempre mano.
The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet.
Quindi qualcheduno l'ha presa di dietro.
Before collapsing on the floor in front of me, with a knife in her back. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back? In a beach shot that was empty but for herself and Ray. Somewhere, amid all the information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question.
I take it then The defense has nothing further to add.
So the gallant ducal student finally runs out. I can say I'm surprised.
In that case, I'm ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter.
This is a crucial turning point. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did she stab the victim?
I know how, anche se non lo so.
Yay!
Dsh. 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 Boom.
Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being.
Oh. To what end, counsel?
The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
An alternative theory? None exists.
There was
Sì, ho sbagliato.
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime.
What?
And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was, those around at the time, by mustering in all remaining strength and pointing trembling finger at the killer's direction.
This is fiction fantasy.
Sentiamo, Allora chi sarebbe codesta persona?
Yes, Your Excellency.
You will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment of the victim... Dari du. Allora, proviamo intanto salviamo. Però io sono sicuro 90 su 100 che la vittima in realtà stava proprio qui dietro.
Naruhodo-san would never give up, and I am Naruhodo now. The true culprit who finally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here.
Are you mad, counsel? You're suggesting that the culprit was outside of the hut?
What?
Vabbè, razzi, è palesemente minimemo. Per qualche motivo è palesemente minimemo, anche se non so per quale motivo, però è minimemo. Questo fa ma sicuro.
But student lawyer Naruhodo-san ex-Skyer.
But student law Naruhodo-san ex-Skyer.
That makes no sense at all.
You just put it out.
Out exactly spot where I was hiding to get my skip snap.
But I didn't say any suspicious individuals loitering about. I can swear to that. Obviously. The culprit have been outside the hut. There is no way that he can or she have stabbed at the victim who was inside the hut.
Actually, Persecutor Ochi, there is a way. And, in point of fact, the defense will provide evidence strongly suggesting that it is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed.
You're bluffing. You're bluffing, you.
The defense assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to be conferred. You will give now more guidance, counsel. What precise evidence corroborates that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut? Allora, buhaioli, siamo punto e a capo, perché allora qui dobbiamo un attimo ragionare. Questo cosa dice? La fotografia! Allora, io ora intanto metto la fotografia. Me l'archivio. Perché secondo me è quello. Dallo scorcio. Vedi? Esatto. Proviamo la fotografia.
The original photographic print of the crime scene.
Lo sapevo! Razzi, sono tornato con furore, non ne ho sbagliata nemmeno una. Com'è possibile non lo so nemmeno io.
Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from the outside the beach hut.
Vai, grande.
Do you take us for fools? There is no hint of such thing.
I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone at least appears to have noticed. What is it in that I'm referring to?
Counsel, once again, I must call you on to be explicit for the coward.
Allora, intanto mi preparo questo, però mi salvo di nuovo. Però buhaioli, ormai ci siamo. Ormai siamo sulla pista giusta.
Look closely just there.
No.
In the screen of the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds.
No, I can't. I can see such thing.
It's sure that in the hut in question had 4 walls, as you'd expect. However, by parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them.
This is extraordinary.
Yes.
Ok.
The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And for everyone present at the scene, this is only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right then, Membami's son, it could only have been you. No!
Però non c'è ancora il breakdown, mi sa che nada.
This precious area leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photographic again. The victim was almost exactly at the center of the picture, does she not? Are we to assume, as a part of the physical scenario, that the assistant was a knife thrower?
No, of course not.
Why not?
If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death, inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett. But she just sat on the floor in the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable.
I stole.
Have another look at the photograph.
Ah, vedi, lei era cece, ok.
The slit in the read screen would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on that stool.
My word. So, in fact, the victim was
killed whilst sitting on that stool by a step wound to her back delivered through the read screen. Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively. But then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut. Before the defendant, Membami summed appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach at that day.
The Bico.
By your silence, Membami's son, I take that you don't deny the charge.
This is absurd!
That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter.
No, ragazzi, è troppo facile. No, ragazzi, è troppo facile. Deve succedere qualche cosa per forza di cose. Non può concludersi così subito. Cioè, non è nel loro stile. Io spero non sia finito davvero così. No, non può essere finito così.
Which means the defendant, Membami's son, is innocent of the...
Okay, innocent of that crime.
Goodness. I finally made him cave.
I must say, I've been more proud.
No, this can't be. The Ouchie clan can't. What of my growth of hope? It wasn't an oppression. I can accept it I want.
No, ragazzi, non può finire.
I see no reason of the continuum.
Non c'è stato nemmeno il breakdown. Dai, andiamo, no, ragazzi. No, ragazzi, non può, non è finito.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude.
Lo sape, cioè, dai, era palese. Incazzata.
Well, this is very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizen freedom to speak and branding them as criminals. But we've established that the victim was stabbed from the outside of the hut through the reed screen walls.
And no one but you was in place at the time to have his hand to hilt the blade on the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction.
So, your higher argument hides on the location of whoever stabbed the English woman, does it? Well, it seems to be a little irrelevant now. Irrelevant?
Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all, it makes no difference if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hangs on the something else. Eccolo lì, vai. Lo cioè dai, non poteva essere finita a quella maniera, era... No, non era nello stile di Saturn essenzialmente.
What are you talking about?
Brace yourself, little man. I am talking about the fact that everything changed. Because of the dirt you dug up.
What?
And now to obscurity, explain yourself, witness.
What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course.
The poison?
Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that the deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it has been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett, is that right?
That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign that this particular poison was used.
I see. So, presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed?
Given that pupils very clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes.
If she had...
If she had been dead already, the poison could have not circulated in her blood.
Povero Auci, è veramente inutile. Non fa niente. È veramente poverino.
How refreshing to hear the argument of our metropolitan mind.
Fosse stato il caro buon vecchio Baroque Van Ziek, questa cosa l'aveva detta 500 anni fa. Auci non fa un cazzo. È veramente inutile. Guardatelo, ha un viso veramente inutile. È fastidioso e inutile.
Precisely. It matters not a jab who stabbed whom he was back in... and with whose blade. Because, quite simply, the English woman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison.
Beh, diciamo fa di morte anche un coltello sulla schiena, che dite?
But that can be explained on the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your side assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim has no trace of poison on it whatsoever.
So let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, turned out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right?
well...
No! Adesso, cos'era quel verso femminile?
Order! But where does this leave us? Oh, in that case, the poison entered the victim's body. There is an undeniably obvious answer to that. That the lady almost likely imbibed it.
You mean she drank it?
Have another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked onto the sandy floor of the beach hut. Oh, the poison could have been slipped into either.
So somebody made Miss Brett drink it.
Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make a great front page shot. Hey! What a be-watching stare. After all, the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already.
Established? What are you talking about?
Huh? Don't tell me you've forgotten.
That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it
Was you?
Me? What on earth does he mean?
Oh, let me capture those white eyes. This is a prime press folder. This is... it would seem that this trial is not destinated to end yet, after all. I hereby to call upon the witness to give a further testimony. That's great, that's it. Let me get a shot of the magnificent bird, Your Excellency. You claim it to be impossible that you were the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain the court in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim. I'm a journal and I'm a man. I've never tried to run to hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now, because that's many mimosism.
For a brief moment, I thought I'd illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us?
Tan tan tan. Complete innocence. Ta-tam. Ta-ta-ra-tam, ta-ra-tam. Oh yes, I stabbed the English woman, and that's the very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? Nah! When I heard the thin girl and the pompous English mother arguing, it got my goal. Ah! If the cowards weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have seen justice done.
So, you admit it then? That everything happened as I described?
Huh.
That you were the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the reed screen?
Huh. You blame this miserable country of ours? A country that blew the bows of the pressure of her gain powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? Nah, that's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap back in the middle of the charming lady's back. I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. As someone who spends his life in seeing that the truth is told, I feel really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. Ah, that's right, you guessed it. Yeah, the pretty little girl. Now there's a woman after on Earth.
You're implicating Ray again.
She's the one who gave the poison to the English woman and ended the pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap! This journal here is up the hook. The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison himself, she only need to have waited it to take effect. Lui non parla, mi babbo, è vero. Vabbè. Subsequently stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical.
That's right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Justice at last.
This is unbelievable. And after I'd made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he going to get away with it now? Champh. Think of Kazuma, Asama, and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gravel.
Very well, then, counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial. Dicono tutti così, poi sa come mai dura tutto ancora 2 anni.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Qui spero davvero sia l'ultimo cross-examination perché guarda, questo caso, secondo me è il peggiore di Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Proprio non mi prende per nulla. Oh yes, I stabbed the English woman, and that's the very fact that proves I'm innocent.
So, you admit that you had murderous intentions toward Miss Brett then?
Ha! The woman's very existence offended my sense of justice.
Your sense of his claiming some sort of righteous indignation?
She was pure evil. A cold-blooded killer who committed the murder right here on our empire's soil.
But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance. So I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice. Put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty. That's what drove me to do it. So, in summary, murderous intention then? Whatever you want to call it, the point is this. Yeah, that English woman was a blight. So I had to do what was right for society.
Yet a real wrong was done by a student girl and a duck. A crime which you must pay.
E lui ovviamente no, eh? Che cazzata. Obviously, because of the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all. Well, because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? Allora, ancora... Aspetta, finiamo di fare tutto il pressing e poi si parte nel succo della questione. So you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim? Obviously. That'd be like putting a belt on your trousers when you were already wearing braces like this.
The accused administered the poison, following which the witness stabbed the victim.
Allora, secondo me, lui deve aver avuto un motivo più preciso, ok? Sapeva di tutto, sapeva del furto, perché appunto è lui quello che ha scritto l'articolo del furto del coso. E magari è stato proprio lui a rubare il veleno per uccidere Miss Brett per qualche motivo più preciso che non sia la giustizia. Questo è poco ma sicuro, almeno quello che penso io, no? Poi ha dato il veleno in qualche modo alla donna, tramite non so quale modo. Facendo così, facendo a questa maniera, sapeva già che sarebbe morta. Quindi cosa è successo? Quando ha visto arrivare la figliolina, ha pugnalato la donna, facendo ricadere poi tutta la colpa su di lei. Prima facendole credere che era stata lei ad averla pugnalata. E adesso diciamo è un po' un'arma non a doppio taglio, ma un'arma a doppia lama, perché lui in questo modo si farà il culo sia con il fatto dell'averlo uccisa, perché vabbè dai, allora è stata palesemente lei che gli ha dato il veleno. E quando prima diceva vabbè, è stata lei a colpirla, capito? Memo è un genio, però mi sta sul cazzo.
Because administered the poison, following which the witness stabbed the victim. An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. That crime rests on the accused's shoulders. This is how the law works, you see, Yoko. Who knows? You may never learn something here today.
Cazzaha! 2 consecutive attempts on her whole life to, in the space of minutes, quite a day for the victim. Do something evil and you got it coming. That's how the law works. The law of reckoning. It's not the kind of law this court upholds. I will retaliate why you're compelled to stab the victim, then, witness. When I heard the student girl that prompted English murder arguing, it got my goat. What exactly were they arguing about?
About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago.
What's that? That was... The student girl was laying into the English woman for killing the beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson. Yes, John H. Wilson. A professor of medicine, invited here from England to be Professor Mikotoba no less. By Professor Mikotoba no less. Che ganzo.
E pensare che è il babbo di Iris, che lei pensa sia ancora vivo. Che ganzo! Che ganzo! Right! Pensare che sono 22 live che tra l'altro sta andando avanti. Bellissima sta cosa. Ce ne saranno un'altra ventina come minimo. Io con oggi spero di finire il caso, perché guarda. Right, but the English woman just jeered.
Her case was to be heard by the British Chancellor Court in Shanghai. Well, however, it is little doubt that she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland a free woman.
I was eating your food up inside. You could see it. I really felt for her. Hold it? Fra? Chi è? Ah bah, la figliolina. I can't. I can't stand here and listen to this tribe. Ray.
Young girl, you stand accused here. You can just blurt whenever you feel like it.
No, you can't. Ma lui sembra si stia per cagare nei pantaloni. È bellissima sta cosa. Sorry, but in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen. But this awful man is making all of this up. Ma no. Susato? Non urlarlo, imbecille! Susato, please! You have to make them listen! Susato? Return to the dock at once. Membami son, we are in the middle of a cross-examination. Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly! She's a filthy, rotten, back-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great peeping Tom. Farah? Whoa! Take it easy here. Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say.
Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused remarks.
I will grant the request for the defense.
But Your Excellency!
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak. Oh. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison. The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean... Ah, già è vero, era lei che l'aveva presa. No, cazzo. Che imbecille, vabbè. D'altronde non da un pezzo, ragazzi. Non so, magari si sta riguardando tutte le live di seguito e dirà: Fra, ma che cazzo dici? Però per me è passato un mesettino da quando ho iniziato il caso. Colpa mia, eh. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson. That's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new potion. But surely it would be no easy task to steal highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are told to thoroughly search it when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. That's true. I pressed it with Professor Mikutaba until
agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. But I left. I was searching from top to tail.
Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the hack she have been developing, you see. And since Soseki-san expressed such interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away other than the fact it was an extremely potent substance.
I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly potion. I wanted to look at my old enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that. To find out if my suspicion were true, I confronted Mr. Brett about the potion. I told her that if we were to be incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government even. It would be a complete disaster.
And now, and how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns?
She just curled those beautiful lips of hers and said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually.
Oh yes, Membami-san. One small question, if you don't mind. I do mind! Can't you see I'm busy? Clearly you were outside the beach, out listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably with that, then it was you who wrote these articles about what you'd heard. Exclusively. Deadly poison stolen from UMA Medical Research Laboratory. The story was published in this morning edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else.
Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, look at this. The entire article is almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Well, Membami-san, as a journal and as a citizen of a free country, I attempted to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of Membami-ism. Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write the article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. The details of the poison article have been updated in the court record. So, that's what it was about. You're trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up in this stinking story about me arguing to her. Shut up! My stories never stink!
Look, whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't after the facts.
Your Excellency! There's something I would say, and I want to go on record.
Very well, you may amend your formal testimony.
The point is, if you poisoned someone, that there'd be no reason to then go to stab the person as well.
Sbonk.
Perhaps you doubted the efficacy of the poison and sought to make sure your victim would die. That's her stung. What? It will be like pepper on your Chinese ramen before you even taste it. Completely reckless. Although it might surprise you that I'm a bit once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to be a good reason for that.
If it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly he must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut.
Yes, that's undeniable.
But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in this situation.
Sorry? What change? The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the English woman. Yes, that's it. That's when Memo-san first found the extract nature of the poison he'd used. That could be the key here.
Allora,
If the victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have no reason to stab her. On the face of it, the logical sounds entirely reasonable. But there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss Brett's murder. If we could think of a plausible explanation as why he might have stabbed her even after the poisoning, I feel sure that everything would drop into place.
mi sto mettendo la felpa perché fa di nuovo freddo.
Yes, I agree. And in order to do that, I must try to glean more information.
Ma qua ci abbiamo già ogni bene pronto. Allora, io qui anderei proprio a capofitto con questo. No. Con questo. Why would I... When I heard the promptus English murder, arguing I got my goal. Goat. Boom! Era questa.
Well, I can think of one reason.
What? Allora, vi spiego il mio ragionamento. Il mio ragionamento, diciamo, si basa su due cose. Una logica e una per la sequenza dei fatti. Quella logica è il fatto che comunque l'articolo della pozione c'entrava sia con l'innocenza del Fra, sia con il fatto che lui ha detto vabbè, se io l'ho colpita con il coltello, non potevo di sicuro avvelenarla. Quando qui dice che l'articolo era stato preso appunto da Memo-san. Questa è la conclusione logica. L'altro motivo è molto banale, per il semplice fatto che nella testimonianza di prima m'hanno intanto aggiornato il foglio, quindi era palesemente la prova che avrei dovuto mostrare, e poi mi ha detto vabbè, ma qui devo farle vedere questa cosa qui che magari si ricollega a qualcosa della pozione. Qualcosa è stato aggiornato subito, pum. In sostanza è questo il motivo principale. Poi c'è anche una versione più logica.
But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information from the newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut? Of course I did! There can be no question of that! After all, when we were in that laboratory together, all we, were told was terribly told is what was a terrible toxin. And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membami's son's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
What are we going to do with this, Council?
Mama's son has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened inside the bitch hut. If the defendant had somehow found the opportunity, these men would have seen it.
Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administrated to her before Membami's son entered the hut. Yes, a very articulately put.
When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison.
Ah, oddio mio. Allora alla fine non si sa ancora chi è che ha rubato, però quella che ha scoperto era stata rubata era Ray, ok.
At which point Memo's son overheard some worrying information.
Worrying information? What worrying information?
The information which is subsequently included in his newspaper article, namely that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained.
Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. The only possible place it could be from his lab.
And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would have exhibited telltale signs in death. The extreme constrictions of the pupils. Yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are no patients that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undescentable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life had been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people.
Oh. Everyone in my laboratory are aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. Enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membami's son being no exception.
Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale property. In other words, someone like you, right and many mammal.
Yeah!
Cringe.
Al cringe. It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day. And it was you who administered to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that was a terrible mistake. Because the poison caused unusual symptoms and was so traceable. As you listened it from the far side to the beach hut's thin walls, you learned of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison, and at that point it was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victims in the back through the reed screen.
Proprio quello che pensavo io. Oh, gli fa buono. Gli fa buono. Oh.
But what could possibly do?
Isn't it obvious, Council? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect.
Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to anticipate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he?
Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would have never suspected.
This is extraordinary!
Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do, plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back.
Ci siamo? Breakdownino nazionale?
Order! 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 The argument presented is sound. The court has testified that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward?
Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much of the same way as the natures of the remnants of his top knot, he is clinging to lost hope.
Lost.
Ci siamo, di nuovo lui. No, non gli si dà proprio pace. Fra?
You pathetic, useless, felon samurai.
Felon? Who are you calling felon?
I don't need a counter-argument!
What are you talking about?
I should be bluntly obvious. I stole the poison, you say.
Oh, ma va!
Gave it to the victim, you say. Stop her there, you say. Lots of fine theories. But I don't need a counter-argument because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence?
Yes, you make it sound so pleasurable, don't you?
But without evidence, it means nothing. Nah. Whereas I base my news on facts. Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself.
È una fia.
I mean, what the professor said earlier in this trial. It's all here, in many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, I'll note it.
Una sega. Ho perso il ritmo, non ce la fa più.
That's what the show news is famous for. It's the power of the printed word.
But surely it would be a not easy task to steal a highly secret toxin developed for the government.
Indeed. All visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even a thief managed to avoid being or a colleague. Getting the poison out of be very difficult.
How's that then?
Blown white, sorry. Blown the story wide open. See, I write in many memo. I'm a reporter from the show news. Yeah, could I have possibly stolen the poison? From the professor's laboratory.
No, dai, Susie, tranquilla.
But there can't be a question of that. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it, and it's the kill. And if that's the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here.
What's your point, you unknowingly handsome country pumpkin?
My point is this. There is no way that you, Membami-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
I have heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have to witness to stole the poison to that queen question?
Allora, io sono pronto a far vedere questo. Perché, allora, per il motivo logico non lo so. Però l'altro motivo è l'unica prova che non è stata ancora presentata.
Well, I think you'll agree that's clearly demonstrated by this piece of evidence here.
By that, you intend to prove that witness stole the poison? How exactly, counsel?
You couldn't until you attempted yourself, Your Excellency.
Eccolo lì, infatti non è quello. Porca Eva. Ah, stava andando tutto così perfetto. E invece. Allora, vediamo un poco. Post mortem. No. Allora, what were the in question? Ah, va. Questa? No. Ah, ma davvero è la fountain pen? Ma che cazzo?
Is this fountain pen?
A fountain pen?
How can that possibly be relevant?
È vero. Sì. Allora, io ho pigiato la fountain pen perché ho detto... Allora, ecco, è l'unica cosa che vedo collegata a parte questo, perché era l'unica cosa che non ho mai usato in tutto il processo. La fountain pen l'ho usata una volta, però a quanto pare non è stata molto utile. Però vabbè. Però adesso è ritornata, quindi si gode.
This magical pen somehow seemed to be enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe that they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now.
Nella sega.
Bah! I swear by a weasel hair, killing pretty blush, and there's nothing else. This newfangled pens are merely fat.
Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, I obviously love my fountain pen. Stuck up soupçon of subtuse ink, and once work a wash with words in blink of an eye. That's right. Fountain pens have small reservoir in the barrel, into which is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later.
What does all this talking of sucking up ink have, huh?
And just as it's possible stacking up the reservoir, it's almost possible to eject it through the nib again, of course.
My word, can this really be?
Ah, ora ha senso.
Well, Membami-san, when you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir.
Non voglio fare ghià, perché no? È arrivato.
More absurdity! That never happened!
True. We've heard that where the projectors in place prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. Why would anyone have thought look inside a fountain pen of all places?
No, I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a delayed search would not have been conducted. Well, this is quite startling, I must say.
I remind the card that this pen was found in the clavicles of the victim when she died.
Eh sì, anche quello gli fa specie.
In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Memo's son. So the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped?
Are you suggesting?
The natural conclusion is that in your haste to act whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you implanted the poison from into her glass.
There could be a number of alternative explanations for example, the witness would have been using this pen to write down details of the conversation with the victim. And when shot by one of the outrageous answer, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink?
What?
As you see for yourself in your if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper goes to interview someone with nothing in his pen? No! The pen was dropped after the poison that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass.
Witness! What do you have to say in your defense?
Sera dice che non hai le prove?
So!
Allora Sera dice: fra, non puoi saperlo fino in fondo. Sbang!
So, this is how our modern justice systems works, is it? Yeah, so what of ink in my pens runs dry? So what of my pencil snaps?
Oh,
I can always claw way back into the game.
oh no! Ma è cosa, Wolverine, fra.
I have plenty in reserve.
Ma sei un pazzo grullo.
You claim I sucked the poison up into my pen? That's one speculation, nothing more. If you could bring down a fire upstanding citizen with a trick like that, think again.
It looks though it's going to take out final decisive blow to finish this matter.
I say it. The situation now is very simple. It rests upon whether it's not witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question. And therefore, it depends upon which or not the defendant can prove he did with evidence.
No such evidence could possibly exist.
Vabbè, e invece...
Memo's-san, this is how modern justice works.
What?
In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the pointing of speculation at this stage, I assure you.
Very well then, I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence.
This will be the final piece of evidence in the puzzle. The defense can prove, by the means of this item, that it was the witness pen that was used to steal the poison.
Eccolo lì, la prova che non è ancora stata utilizzata, signore e signori. Oh, bang!
Counsel,
Lo sapevo, sium!
what is that bottle?
Oh, comunque ragazzi, oggi ho fatto solo una padella, bellissimo. I fa buono.
The bottle contains unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question.
Yes, that poison is entirely new synthesis of alcoholics developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect the traces of it by any other method.
Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody could all check the traces of poison. Reagent? What? 1 drop of the contents of this bottle that on the tip of your fountain pen, my son. Is it what I will take to solve this case beyond all the reasonable doubt? No, you can't. I won't. Your crimes are bad enough, but at least you know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests the permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once. This isn't my fault! Snation! Aspetta, pazzo! Pazzo! Sei un grullo! Susato, with me! I'm there! Cosa è successo? Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryutaro takedown. The instant first drop of the reagent touched the nape of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present.
When I saw it there in the lab, the poison, the devil God told me, and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself.
Per chi non lo sa, ho ripreso la voce vecchia, perché la voce vecchia gli fa più buono. La voce vecchia, all'inizio fa più buono. And emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing a reservoir out carefully.
And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen.
Yes, that's right.
Answer me one thing, Memo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose?
Isn't obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a journal like me to pass up.
Then why did the English woman end up dead?
I went into the thought intending to quit her on her situation, that's all. As a reporter, a known killer, enjoying full freedom, evading justice by leaving the country. I told her what I was taught about it.
And she just laughed in my face!
Oh, what's this? A fair Eastern caveman purpering to practice journalism? Oh, kawaii koto.
Ah, che bella. La faccia è palesemente quella di Kaguya quando fa che cosa carina, oppure che tenero. La faccia è quella, e anche l'espressione. Oh, kawaii koto.
Really? Must learn the difference between reporting and listening at their ways, you ignorant plebeian.
What? What did you call me?
This country, with its pretentious to a justice system to a free press. It's really very depressing. You see, our superior ways to in the West, yet you lack on the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out and crawl back into the cave you came from.
That's when I remembered about the deadly potion. I happened to have it in my pen at the time. Please speak as you were speaking before, or I will kill you right now. Anyway, what a terrible tale. In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her away with what she'd done when she clearly had no remorse at all.
I suppose it was Buongiorno's pirate getting all fired up.
C'è dell'altro, ragazzi. C'è dell'altro. È impossibile che sia solo questo. Non ci sta.
I'd like to ask you something.
Yes.
You often talk about justice. But surely you, as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver justice you sought.
There's no justice in the press.
Sorry?
After the trial 9 months ago, I kept ticking to find out what happened in that courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth.
Dash! It was a cover-up! That's what it was!
A cover-up? What do you mean?
I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful on what you say. Oh, come on! Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national. Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet, that puffed up English woman was going to sail away into the sunset of a free woman. The only possible explanation is that behind the scenes, some deal had gone between Britain and Japan.
What sort of deal?
I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was ready to be published. God, but do you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up. He came under pressure from the government, you mean? If our government is going to let criminals work free, if they are going to crush free press, then what choice do I have but see the justice done myself?
Let's not forget Memo-san, that you committed murder yourself and you tried to lay blame at the defendant's door. Non si fa, no. È scorretto.
What?
The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all.
I suppose. E così è finita. Oh, vai, gli fa buono.
It would appear that we have reached a conclusion in these trials at last. Counsel for the defense, Ryotaro Naruhodo.
Oh! Yes! Sorry, Your Excellency! I just musing in a manly way here.
It's almost unknowable that this is your first time experience of the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very reminded me of your cousin's exploits.
Oh, Naruhodo-san, Ryunosuke, you mean?
The way you handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one. Sembra quasi tu fossi la sua assistente, il suo assistente, o sbaglio, eh? It gives hope that we're genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land.
Plot twist, no. Anzi, si fanno dei passi indietro. Soprattutto con il caro buon vecchio Phoenix. Grande Fenice.
That's very flattering, Your Excellency.
Hearing the defense you put forward today made me must feel keenly that the future of our justice system will be forget by you and your contemporaries.
Thank you.
So, Prosecutor Ochi, do you have any final thoughts?
Fra? Prosecutor Ochi?
I, the Katsuchi of the Ochi clan, have been bested by a hollow youth. Not once now, but twice. If there was any shred of my former self left, it has withered and died here today.
Gosh. Your journey, cultural enlightenment, sure take a while, didn't it?
Silence! Liberal! Rather living on this than living on in shame.
No, Fra, ma che fai?
I will end all now with this blade.
Fra? No, oh, ma che fa? Fra, no. No, aspetta, no, ma che non si può, non si può ammazzare.
This is the truth path to Auchism.
Auchism?
One hopes that it's the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness.
Spring of my top knot. The time right for farewell. Hop lost forever. Takatsuchi.
Fra? No! E Rock? Ah, ok, si taglia il ciuffino. No. No. Ed eccomi siamo arrivati all'Oshi di Phoenix Wright. Anche se non è proprio l'Oshi di Phoenix Wright, ma è quello prima. Bah, mi ero dimenticato anche di Osunaga. Ciao Osunaga. Bellino l'ispettore. Stavolta è stato veramente inutile, non ha fatto niente. Bellino. Ragazzi, Osunaga, best witness ever.
Now, in regard to the dependent Ray Membami's son.
No, adesso altra mezz'ora mi va via perché si mettono a discutere inutilmente fuori. Che palle. Yes, Your Excellency.
I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you not guilty.
E gli fa buono.
Court is adjourned.
Oh vai. Andiamo. Appena poi non c'ho tutto il pomeriggio. Dio bonino.
Non ci credo, ma mi hai davvero...
Sento puzza di... No. Oi oi, puzza la televisione di bruciato, razzi. Molto interessante. Bella robina.
It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It's all I can just stay standing.
Bada bellino.
Lawyers have such great responsibility, such great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san?
Eh sì.
Susato! Susato! Thank you so much. You were so dashing in there. Ray and Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh no, I think I'm going to cry. It wasn't easy, but we made it. I was on the verge of tears in the end, though. The only reason I'm still here is because of you.
Yeah, good ending.
Oh no, I can take all credit. It took courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Ray. So I wouldn't have to say that the congratulations belong to you. Susato, don't be standoffish. Sorry? We're friends, equals, and the trial's over. So no more of this formal super humility nonsense. It's time to celebrate with swagger. To throw a caution to the wind. Caution to the what? I'm the great defense, Ryutaro Naruhodo. And I'm talking you out of the milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right, I see. I'll think about it, Ray. At my rate, you really knocked the wind out of that horrid man. And it felt so good. Yes, it was satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anybody else who could throw together?
I hope you're not looking at me, Ray.
Oh my goodness. No, of course not. Of course not. There's it at last. Ray's lovely smile.
You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense attorney Ryutaro Naruhodo.
Thank you. But I couldn't have done it without your help. Anyway, it's time to bid farewell to Ryutaro. I think.
Speriamo.
I shall miss him, in a way, but it's back to Susato Mikotoba now. So, I'll never see him again then. What a terrible shame! What is happening? Sasaki-san and Inspector Hosonaga. I do hope you've been keeping well. Is it really you? Yes, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reason. I hope, but it's me, Susato Mikotoba. I don't.
Divine.
No! Lovely dashing, yes, and the hell, she's divine. Just look at you. I had no idea, Mr. Such experience that you were like student Naruhodo-san's Skyer's cousin.
Che stupido.
Astounding ace attorney. Poor Sasaki-san, so confused.
Esatto. Ah, che ricordi.
I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London. What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense at the Old Bailey, Sasaki-san was free to return to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself a great fame as an author.
I'm stunned! That's a truly impressive disguise! I had no idea! I should expect you come up with Mr. Turtle, no less. I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector. Amazing. You're a woman of many faces, I see.
Just two, really. And it was once in a lifetime event, I hope. Oh, I'm not in a patch of you though, Inspector.
Well, I'm a professional, of course.
I do worry about Inspector, sono so che palle.
Sì, ora fa vedere la prima volta, sì.
9 months ago, when he appeared at the Supreme Court to testify, he was uncovered, disguised, and head of waiter of the restaurant.
Poverino.
And then on steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as a sailor to keep us safe on the journey.
Che ricordi anche lui. Bellino.
Though that didn't help you, did it? Kesuma-sama?
E ora eccolo qui. From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feeling about all this. I mean, now the truth has been lost forever.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the murdered English woman committed at the end of last year.
Ah, yes, the English doctor she killed, as I understand it.
Dr. John H. Wilson, yes. The man I invited to Japan personally.
The mystery is, why did she kill him? And now the culprit is herself that will probably never know the answer. On the voyage
to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter with Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the great detective, I mean.
Yes, I remember Mr. Holmes as well. Well, of course.
My arch nemesis. How lightly you utter his name. Well, according to the stories published about him in The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, finalmente Susato spiega anche della sua figliola.
Solve the crimes, best friend. And what was an exceptional of the doctor of medicine by the name of John H. Wilson? What? Dr. Wilson? I just can't believe it. It's a coincidence. I think that English doctor of medicine.
Ma non ha parlato di Iris. Che fai, Susie? Ma parla anche di Iris a sto punto.
I think that the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Holmes. And if that's really true.
Oh! Sì.
And the poor girl won't ever see her beloved father again.
Però questo non lo dice a voce alta. Però vabbè.
As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born.
Yes, grandmother told me about it.
On returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yume University. But I also serve another role, as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs.
Yes, I was aware of this as well.
In that case, I'm sure you understood that there are some confidential matters I cannot divulge you.
Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It's been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram arrived from Japan. It said you'd collapsed with a high fever, and you were growing weaker by day. What? Where did the information news come from? That's what I'd like to know. Because after the long sea voyage, I found you fine health, Father. Was there something written that you perceived might inconvenience me in some way or harm me? That's really the only explanation I can think of.
Dear me, do you reserve your most cutting laughs for your father, Susato? I'm sorry, my dear, I simply can't.
Huh? Ma? Che ci fa lui?
Me?
My son. So, the throat wasn't enough of you. I've got one last thing to say before my professor.
Me?
I know this word. I know you had the hand that went on. And that visiting student's fate.
Visiting student? Giselle Brett, you mean? No, not her! The student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago!
What, student of law? He must mean Kazuma-sama. What are we talking about? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama?
Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England. That he died on that steamship. And they'll never...
Il giudice? Il giudice, ma che capo fai?
Well, I didn't expect to find him here.
Oddio, com'è strano messo così. Però adesso ha visto che è Susato e non è un uomo. Vabbè.
What were you, officer, playing at?
Terribly sorry, Your Excellency.
I was coming to tell you the rickshaw has arrived, Eugene. And it's a good job I came by. Yes. Thank you for dealing with him. And I'll be there shortly.
Oh, Your Excellency.
The trial's over. I'm not Your Excellency anymore. Merely your father's friend. Shiro.
Che nome strano.
And I may say, since I saw you last, you seem to have taken on more dashing appearance, Susato.
Did you know all along? From the start of the trial?
A judge sees everything, Susato. I couldn't let you take the risk if Seishiro here hadn't known and he hadn't recognized you. So I had a word to your poor friend as an old friend.
È la prima volta in un gioco di Ace Attorney che si vede un giudice parlare così con... Cioè, magari sì, nel gioco di Ace Attorney si saranno incontrati fuori, tipo, in quel crimine, in quel coso che era lì sulla nave. No, non sulla nave, sul treno. Il Magen Train di Ace Attorney. Il caso non so se è del secondo o del terzo gioco. Però vabbè, questa maniera così fuori mai successo.
So, Seishiro, shall we? Yes.
Il problema è che a loro due gli ho dato lo stesso tono di voce, solo che Mikotoba gli ho fatto gli fa pronunciare le lettere male. Solo che il problema è che il tono è lo stesso.
Yes. Having ruled on that case, now we have various diplomatic issues to address.
Before you go, father.
Sorry, my dear. We shall have to return to our early conversation at a later date. But never done again, both of you. You did admirably.
Oh, thank you very much.
What did you think of my Seishiro sling, huh?
Seishiro sling.
It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that.
Ma sei come ciccione.
Whatever could father be hiding from me? About Josiah Brett, about Dr. Wilson, and now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm going to have to bring this up with father sometime when nobody else is around. Judicial Assistant Mikoto-san says, can I have a word? Oh, yes, of course, Seki-san. What is it? I think perhaps it could be a fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you. Oh? I believe that it may be released to the reason why your father summoned you back from England. This I have to hear. Please, Sasaki-san, tell me at once. I will.
Ehi, calmati.
As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I have not doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness, lucky student of the dog ex-guyer stepped in.
Quanto devo andare avanti? Basta!
After I secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report about my experiences to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. Yeah, it was your father, Professor Mikotoba. He wanted to ask me stories of things about my report. My father? He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day he sent a telegram to asking you to return to Japan. It was it then, the particular part my father was interested in. I don't really know exactly. But do you remember then? Those two terrible cases I was captain? Of course, I could never forget. Your father was concerned too, mainly with the second case. The second one? You mean the one Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in public? Which is the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of, is the first. Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what the disastrous detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that case somebody holds the key to all this curious and unanswered question. That horrific heinous case, the case of Hound Loudkings.
Poverino.
That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan. I thought that whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. Perhaps that was only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told.
Finisce così. Oh.
こうしてかの英国留学生の事件は決着がついたのでございます。
Che bella in
大
giapponese.
シーンに立ってほんの少し分かったような気がいたしました。なるほど様が異国の法廷で何に立ち向かっているのかを。
Ma è molto meglio in giapponese, ragazzi, ma che stiamo
今日は
scherzando?
もう一つ お知らせしたいことがあって筆を取りました。夏目漱石様がおっしゃった2つ目の事件。父は何も語りませんが、あの事件にはどうやら大きな謎を解く重要な鍵が眠っているようでございます。あの事件の記録はお部屋の棚の左隅に残しておきました。よろしければ振り返ってみてはいかがでしょうか。
No.
日本はいよいよ夏の盛り、今日も抜けるような青空でございます。なるほど様、もう一度お会いしたく存じます。すさと。
Oh. Chissà se si rincontreranno. Secondo me sì. Di qui alla fine di gioco si devono per forza di cose rincontrare, se no mi incazzo. Oh. Fine. Però non ci sono stati punti, come si chiamano, backstory o... Cioè no, backstory, Dio buonino. Punti vabbè, non viene a mente il termine, comunque è quello che intendete. Cioè i cutscene. Ok, ecco come si chiamano. Ora voglio vedere una cosa. Se ora vado su gallery. No. Ecco dove era auditorium. Voice recitals. Oh, eccolo qui. Allora, Ryunose, se ci fate caso, è il doppiatore di cosa? Non so se l'ho detto in una live di Saturn o in quella di Demon Slayer, ma è il doppiatore di Zenitsu. Sentite. Io quando l'ho scoperto ci sono rimasto tipo bellissimo, bellissima sta cosa.
弁護側は尋問の権利を主張します。矛盾です。そう、矛盾なのです。あなたの証言は決定的に矛盾している。待った。
Bellissimo, matta.
待った。もうあなた。待った。
被告側弁護人の法務助手、御言葉すさとと申します。承知しております。
E lei si sente invece che è la doppiatrice di... Lui non ricordo chi fosse, sinceramente. Eccolo qua. Ah, lui invece è il doppiatore di Kisaki, quello di My Hero Academia. E ci sta un botto anche lui. Bellissima sta cosa qui. Allora, direi che adesso questa live è durata anche un po' troppo per le lunghe. Adesso è arrivato il momento per me di dire ciao ciao al primo caso che è finalmente finito. Buhaioli, grazie per avermi seguito in live. Vi ringrazio tanto tanto. Noi ci vediamo in un prossimo video o in una prossima live qui sul canale Viola. Forza Viola. E buhaioli, che dire, grazie mille per avermi seguito. Ciao Giulio. Ciao ragazzi, ciao 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 ciao.